Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Bad Times, Good Stories podcast. My name is Joe Flanders. How the hell are ya? If you happen to live in the United States, happy 4th of July! I hope it is enjoyable and you do as our forefathers would have wanted, which is to drink a lot if you're of age, and even if you're not of age. Anybody, really. 5, 10, 12, 20, 50. Drink it up and eat a bunch of meat and then almost blow off your finger with some fireworks. That is the American dream, and I hope you achieve it. If you don't live in the United States, I hope that your Wednesday is pleasurable. Today on the show is Eric Cooney, who is someone I went to college with. He was a senior and I was a freshman. Just a great guy who I enjoy running into from time to time. Today, we are talking about what I coined as the worst year of his life. It's the year that he moved to LA and a lot of shit happened. Multiple car accidents and multiple broken hearts and gang arrests and suing his old landlord and getting ghosted. All sorts of fun stuff. I appreciate him talking about it. I think we all can look back and think about, man, that was a really shitty year. It is a fun episode. I also share an embarrassing story involving trying to impress my current girlfriend. When we were just meeting, I tried to impress her at a roller rink, doing some rollerblading. I did not know how to rollerblade. It was a disaster. As always, feel free to visit badtimesgoodstoriespod.com, where you can check out past episodes, look at our merch, support me on Patreon, which I greatly appreciate so I can keep the show going. And thank you to all of the people that are currently supporting the show on Patreon. I really appreciate it. If you have a bad time that makes a great story, shoot me an email at badtimesgoodstoriespodcast@gmail.com, and I may just read it on the air. Also, if you'd like to listen to this on Spotify, you can do that. I'm guessing if you're already listening to this on a different platform, you don't really need to listen to it on Spotify. But if you want to, it's there, and you can do so. But without further ado, here is my conversation with Eric Cooney.
They do really fancy donuts, where they basil, and it's I don't need to pay $6 for a donut.
No.
Just give me a donut.
There's a place around the corner that makes the fancy donuts, and it's a dozen donuts for $30.
No, fuck that.
Yeah.
I got a dozen here. It seems like less because 2 fell out when I was getting out of my car.
Oh boy. 2 casualties.
But it was $12, and it's I can handle a dollar.
Yes.
Donut.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Hopefully you get the Baker's Dozen combo at least.
Oh, no, I did.
All right, good. Yeah. If they have a heart. There's actually a place 2 blocks from me called the Dessert Lounge. And it's this is such a funny time that we're living in where basically people our age are the ones that are building new or, opening new restaurants and shops and everything. Everything is just, how can we make 30-year-olds feel like they're 14?
Oh, yeah.
Everything. This Dessert Lounge, it's got ice, but it has ice cream, and my new favorite thing is all the places that have Oreo O's cones or whatever, where it's just I pay, you can't think about it. Because I'm paying an extra $5 for a handful of Oreo O's, but they also have alcohol-infused ice cream. Ooh. And you can get a cotton candy burrito. It has it's cotton candy is the tortilla. Anyway, but then they also have the a Sega Genesis and a Nintendo, the smart ones where they all have the games loaded onto it.
Right.
And, and they're free to play, and they have ping pong and all this. But I'm just this is just meant for 14-year-olds.
Well, that's the thing about our generation or the millennial generation is that everybody's going to be a man or woman child until they're 40.
Yeah.
Or maybe forever. I don't know. We haven't really seen where it's going to go. Yeah.
My favorite thing on this subject is the pop-ups that are opening up in LA. They had a Star Wars pop-up, a cantina that's Star Wars themed in Hollywood.
I did not hear about that one.
Yeah, it was supposed to last for like 3 months, and it's been open for a year. And Kevin Smith has done his Fat Man on Batman podcast there a couple times.
That is funny.
And it's funny because it's clearly Star Wars themed, like the lever that the bartenders pull for the tap for beer is a lightsaber, but they don't have any rights, so nothing is actually like it's. So it's really very creative with it. And then my favorite one that I have not been to, and not because there's a Saved by the Bell pop up.
I have a ton of friends posting pictures at that.
Yeah, you can go to the Max. So, listener, if you don't live in LA, it's as silly a town as you might hear.
Yeah.
People are spending lots of money to go eat at the Saved by the Bell restaurant.
I want to say that it was here. I want to say it was in Los Angeles, in downtown Los Angeles, and it wasn't a pop-up. It was an actual business where they tried to make it Jurassic Park themed, but obviously they didn't own the rights.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was like shitty dinosaurs and big plants and stuff, and somebody terribly painted stuff on the walls.
What you're describing just sounds like a shitty Rainforest Cafe knockoff.
Yes.
With a hint of Jurassic Park or dinosaurs.
Right. Oh, Lord.
Are you ready for my amazing segue?
Yes. I don't know if it counts when you say it's an amazing segue.
So did you get in a car accident on the way over here?
No, I did not.
Oh, no. Okay. But have you ever gotten in one before?
Yes. I got in one right when I moved to Los Angeles, and it's confusing, so I'll explain.
Sorry to cut you off, but just to give the story context, folks, we are talking about the worst year of Eric's life.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was certainly tumultuous.
Yeah.
Some good came out of it. Okay. But yeah, so I moved to Los Angeles in 2007, right after I graduated from college, and I drove out across country with my parents, which was not fun. They do not get along, especially while driving. Oof. And we went to Vegas, and the idea was like, we were going to get him, we were going to go to Vegas, we were going to spend a couple days together, and then my parents would fly home from Vegas, and my brother and I would drive back to LA, and I would live in LA. So we get to Vegas. So my brother and I, we wake up late, and we're like, let's go get lunch. We get in the car, the first stoplight after the hotel, where the light turns green, we're going straight, and this yellow Volkswagen Beetle tries to gun it through the intersection in front of us and hits us almost head on.
Oh,
and
shit.
Like my car was blown up. It was like a old Chevy Blazer, and her blown up. That was an exaggeration.
Well, sure, or else you wouldn't be here.
It was pretty messed up looking.
Yeah.
Her tiny little Beetle had like a dented fender, but I think it was because she gassed into us.
Okay, so she was, she was coming in hot.
Yeah. Nobody was injured, although I did get really gnarly airbag burns on my arm, which this tattoo is covering up now.
Oh,
but it was already emotional culture shock moving to Los Angeles and everything, and then started off with a car accident.
Yeah, I mean, other than the car actually blowing up, I can't think of a worse way for your time in LA to start.
Right.
You're excited to be here, and it's all happening now, and you've thought about it in film school for years, and now you're here, and but you're also scared. There's all these emotions, and now the first thing you have to do is figure out how you're going to get around town.
Right, exactly. And it's like, well, LA isn't really a place you can not have a car.
Right.
And I didn't have a job yet, and so thankfully, the woman who we got into an accident with was like, that was my fault. I'm taking ownership of that. So that was great. We didn't have to battle any of that. Pretty sure she was a stripper.
Okay.
In Vegas. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but she had a very strippery name. It was like, that's not a real name.
Now, can I see your insurance card? Is that actually...
Is your name Rio Temple? Because that sounds fake. So we get, we rent a car. My brother and I drive back to Los Angeles, and my parents fly home. And so it was just a month of sleeping on my brother's floor without a car. I'm looking for a job. And at the time, I had a long-distance girlfriend who I'd been with for closing in on 3 years.
Okay. Where was she living?
She was living in Birmingham. I actually met her at School of the Arts. She was a ballerina, and she was dancing for ballet company. And well, we had loose plans on what we were going to do and like how we were going to eventually move in together and everything.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a timeline, I think long distance relationships can work. But if you don't have a timeline,
Right.
that's when it's hard because it's like, how long is this going to fucking go on for?
Right. If you're saying stuff like, well, we'll just see what happens. It's not going to go well.
No.
You've got to have very clear goals and dates. And
Yeah. And we did not have that.
Okay.
So it was just me adjusting to this time and not, our schedule was all messed up, talking to each other. And so eventually my brother and I find an apartment. And it was like dream apartment, 2 parking spaces.
That's amazing.
Central air.
Oh.
It was insane. And it was like $1,350 total for a 2-bedroom. Wow. I will explain later how we lucked into that.
Okay.
But so we move into this place, and when I did break up with her in a terrible, terrible, disrespectful, awful fashion, I just like didn't talk to her for a week, and then I was like, "Hey, I think we should break up," out of the blue.
Was it a text?
No, I talked to her on the phone, and she was like, "You haven't talked to me for a week. This is not cool." And I was telling myself, I was in this car accident. I'm like moved in, but really, I live in Los Angeles now. I want to have fun, but I felt like a dick for feeling that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, and then we moved into this new place, and 2 beautiful young women our age move in right next to me.
Oh, God. It's so funny because that's the dream, and then it can also become the nightmare.
Yes. And I don't follow the don't shit where you eat rule.
Sure.
So I broke up with my ex and was like immediately in rebound mode.
Was it clean or, I don't mean clean, like no drama. I guess I'm just wondering, after that conversation, was it done?
It was done for several months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can get back to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I broke up with her, and it was the next day. You know when you start at college, and you meet a couple people, and then you're like instantly best friends with them? That's what it was like with these 2 girls. We were instant best friends, and it was the day after I broke up with my girlfriend, and they were like, you know what we should do? They also went to film school, or one of them went to film school, and she was like, we should watch my student film and make it a drinking game. And every time we say this certain word, we take a drink.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what it was, but that word was the title of the movie. And so we went out, we bought a bottle of apple-flavored vodka, which I cannot drink to this day. And the 3 of us finished this bottle in a half hour. I black out, and I wake up, and I'm hooking up with one of them. The other one's trying to find the bathroom to puke. And then I'm like, oh, no, I have to do that, too. Yeah, it was awful.
Was this just happening like in the living room or something? For you to know that the other one was trying to find the...
No, because we ended up in the one girl's bedroom, and we were just like making out.
Yeah.
And then I think the other girl was in the corner. Like she couldn't find the door to the bathroom. It was like dark, and then I was like, I also need to puke. Okay. But like we could laugh about it the next day, but I immediately was like, oh, this is my rebound. We just made out, but for afterwards she was like, that's, we're just friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, but really though? She was like, no. After that, I think it got a little weird with me and her. We all would hang out together, but I never really hung out with her alone for that reason.
Right.
But I started hanging out with the other girl. I'm purposely just referring to them like this because I don't want to say their names.
Right. No, yeah, I get it. You know their names.
I am still friends with them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they care for me to mention them. Anyway, but the other girl whom I did not hook up with, she and I started hanging out all the time.
Yeah.
And we were like, really became like best friends. And at one point, I don't even remember what it was. We're just like watching TV or something. And we ended up, pseudo snuggling. And then the next day online, I was like, hey, was that a thing? And she was like, yeah, it was a thing. And so then we started dating. And that only lasted for like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And then she was like, no, it feels weird. We're, like we're friends with each other. It feels weird. And then we drifted away from that and then drifted back toward it again and then away from it.
And back, which is always super healthy and not confusing to anyone.
Right. And then she ended up moving to Germany.
Oh.
And me not learning that long distance things are hard, we kind of hooked up before she left.
Yeah.
And then we were like, to clarify, we're not doing a thing. You are on a completely, it is night when it is day for me and vice versa.
Right, yeah.
And then we ended up doing that. And so it was me buying calling cards and talking to her every night. And,
it was before Skype.
Right. And then it was just too hard and it like petered off. And
Yeah.
Most of that time was just me sort of like trying to find something,
Right.
And although that's the second girl, the one who moved to Germany, I was totally actually in love with her and it wasn't like a rebound thing.
Yeah.
It was just like a whole part of that mess.
It takes a while to get settled in LA.
Yeah.
So you're just clinging for some sort of stability. When you're in an on again, off again, like nothing that you've described is stable. So I feel like it's got to be really hard.
Right. And to like compound that, after I moved to Los Angeles, I was grappling with the fact that I did not want to work in film. Like I majored in screenwriting. I found no joy in that anymore. It had been crushed out of me. And so I'm also dealing with, do I even want to be here kind of thing? And that's when I was like, I fucked up by breaking up with my ex. That was dumb. And so I tried to get her back and I talked her into me visiting her.
Yeah. You said she was in Alabama?
Yes.
Birmingham? Okay.
Yeah. And so it actually worked.
Uh-huh.
But literally from the time that I left Birmingham to the time that I landed in LA, she changed her mind. She was like, we're not getting back together. And she, the reason she gave me is the funniest reason. God. So while we were there, the night before I left, we watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Okay.
And I got back and she was like, watching that movie, I realized that like, it's important for my family to love you and they hate you. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, God.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding was her epiphany. Like, oh no, I did not live up to the standard of My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So they ended my relationship.
Why did they hate you?
She was my first. I was her first.
Yeah.
And we were long distance. And to maintain intimacy while you are apart from each other, you send naked photos.
Okay, sure.
And her dad was a jackass and would sneak into her email and read her email. And so he found naked pictures that I had sent her and naked pictures that she had sent me. And it infuriated him. I remember I was in a screening of Batman Begins and my phone was blowing up. And so I was like, oh man, I got to answer this. And so I went out and she was like freaking out. My dad found all these pictures. And so, yeah, from that point on, they hated my guts.
That is, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
They knew that you were in a relationship and actually having sex, right?
I guess they didn't know until they found that shit.
Yeah.
I also had an argument with this guy once about, he was like, a professional golf tournament is 3 rounds of golf. And I was like, no, it's 4.
It's 4.
And he was like, no, it's 3. I'm sure it's 3. And I spent every weekend of my life watching golf because my dad loves golf. And I was like, I'm just leaving it.
Right. Every tournament starts on Thursday and ends on Sunday.
Right.
That's 4.
But he was one of those people, you could point at the sky and be like, blue. And he'd be like, green. You're like, no, asshole. He also, by the way, looked like a younger Dave Thomas. So
Of Wendy's fame?
Yes.
Or the actor Dave Thomas?
No. Of Wendy's fame. So it's like, you're like a mean Dave Thomas. Don't ruin Wendy's for me.
That is the funniest when you get into stupid arguments, but they become real and have lasting implications.
Yes.
Because that conversation is of no interest and should have no bearing on anything.
No.
And yet, you really can see, like, you can discover, like, who a person is in those arguments. You're like,
absolutely,
fuck that guy.
Right.
He thinks it's only 3 rounds of golf.
Exact. And that was him with everything. He thought he was God's gift to earth and he knew everything. And so that guy finding all of those emails was, it was death knell for that relationship.
Wow.
So.
Okay. All right. So big fact. So you got on the plane feeling great. You're like, okay, there's some stability in my life. Something makes sense.
Yes.
I can go back and be okay. And then you got off the plane and was it a text or was it a phone call?
I called her to let her know that I had landed. And she was like, I can't get back together.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Do you think ultimately that was a blessing in some way? Because, and maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like your main reason to get back together was because nothing else in your life was going well. And this was like a comfortable thing that would make you feel better.
It was definitely a comfortable thing. And I think it was also, there were lingering emotions there. And I probably hadn't fallen out of love with her yet. But I think I was being selfish. And I wanted to have my cake and eat it too.
Right.
And I'm in Los Angeles and I'm living next door to these 2 beautiful girls. And, and so it was like, once the sort of excitement of Los Angeles had died down, I was like, fuck, I want to be in a relationship and I'm still in love with this girl. And I fucked it up. It wasn't an amicable breakup at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not that what I'm saying made it feel any better in the moment, because you're not thinking about that in the moment. You're just like, something to make me feel good. And now it's taken away from me instantly.
Yeah.
But I can relate on the level that I broke up with my girlfriend in high school or in college. We dated senior year, and at that point, it had been the longest relationship of mine. It lasted a little more than 6 months, I think. But we drove to Ohio for my brother's high school graduation after I graduated college, and I brought her along. So she met my family for the first time, and the night we got back, like we drove from from Columbus.
I don't like where this is going.
No, it doesn't go well. The night we got back, we started in Columbus. We drove the 7 hours to Winston-Salem. That night, I was like, I think we should break up.
Oh, my God.
I was such an asshole. She had just met my family.
I just met your family.
Yeah. And it was clear, like, even while we were in Ohio, like, I was sleeping in the basement, she was sleeping in my room, and she came down crying one night, like, do you even want me here? And I was like, of course. And I think and maybe for similar reasons that not the long distance part, but I was just like, I'm moving to LA. I need to figure stuff out this summer. Because I just wasn't mature enough to be like, this person can help me figure that out. We can help each other.
Yeah.
And I don't need to do this alone. But in the moment, it was too much.
Yeah.
And so I thought, for whatever reason, I think I was just too chicken to do it before the trip. And I was like, maybe this will somehow fix things and I won't feel this way.
Right.
But it didn't work. And it was terrible. And we both cried. And then so that was in June. And then August, I got here September 1st. I did a road trip too. And she moved to LA because of me. I mean, it was her decision because we'd been broken up for a couple months, but she had made the decision to move to LA. When I moved here and the excitement sort of wore off and I didn't have a job and I thought I had realistic goals. So I was like, I'm just trying to get an internship. I got 50 companies on a list that I've researched and half of them hung up on me. Another 30% said no, and the others were just like, try back in 6 months. And, I was just, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll hit her up. And then we started talking a little bit, and I think because I was very emotional when we broke up, she didn't hold a intense grudge against me because it was hard.
Yeah.
I just felt like that's what I needed to do in the moment.
Right.
And so we were friendly, and we met up a couple times. And then I remember we were on Facebook messaging, and she referred to somebody as her man friend. And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, I think I know what that means, but it's not definitive.
Yeah.
So maybe there's hope.
Yeah.
And then I just tried to get her back, and she was already dating somebody. And so the first 5 months out here, I just drank a lot and wrote a script about her.
Yeah. It's funny, though, because I feel like after you break up with somebody and then and then you're lonely and then you're thinking about them, you forget all of the other shit that made you break up with them in the first place. And you're like, it was good.
Yeah.
I had feelings for that person.
Yeah. She was nice.
Yeah, it's never good. I don't know how many times I've doubled back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
And it never goes well, right?
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And so this time, after she ended it, I really downward spiraled. I had a job. I was a PA, an office PA at World Poker Tour.
Okay.
And so I would lock myself in the supply closet to cry.
Oh God.
And so, because I was a wreck.
Oh,
And so I was just like go in the closet and lock the door and cry and then go back to work. And then
use the janitor's supply of paper towels to wipe your eyes off in the closet.
and this was like the worst job too for keeping your mind busy because I was like a runner. And so I was constantly driving around. It's just like time in your car to think about all of your mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Everything. You're questioning everything by yourself.
Yeah.
Oh God.
All this stuff is in retrospect, blessing in disguise.
Right.
Sometimes you got to, climb down. I was out at a bar with Tom Young.
Yeah.
Who also has been on this, right?
Yes.
Tom,
friend of the show.
Yes. We were drinking at this bar in Hollywood that I think was called The Scorpion.
It sounds right.
It was not a good bar.
Yeah, that sounds like a Hollywood bar.
And we're just completely and totally wasted. We're talking about relationships, and obviously I'm crying to him about my breakup.
Right.
And he starts telling the story, relating about his first love or whatever, and he just said, I met up with her or something and she was engaged, and that was the moment when I realized that it was completely over and I would never be with this person again. And that just struck me so hard, and I went home and made a very drunken, sloppy attempt to hurt myself. And it's not funny, but it was, I imagine going back and watching it would be like a monkey trying to open a coconut. It was It was so sloppy and awful, but that needed to happen.
Yeah.
I had to bottom out because I couldn't go on crying in that supply closet anymore.
No. Yeah. You used all the paper towels.
I did. And
during that moment, was there a moment when you realized, oh, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. Did it end up kind of being a dark night of the soul where it did give you that perspective of it's time to move on?
Absolutely. When you're like trapped in that cycle, it's like you kind of enjoy it, or not enjoy it, but it's like, when you almost come to depend on that feeling of extreme emotion because it like makes you feel alive in a way when you don't have love, when you don't have another person. But it was like, it's time to abandon this. This is not working anymore. And I need to, come back around on this. And it was actually after that happened that I started seeing my next door neighbor, which was good because it was a little bit more of, I know what I need as an individual. And so I'm not basing that on this other person, which is all I had thought about for like 2 years of school.
Yeah, it's really hard when you realize that you're investing your happiness in someone else.
Right.
Because it's not really fair to them. It's not healthy for you. It's just a recipe for disaster when all of your self-worth and happiness is predicated on somebody else feeling the same way.
Right. And I wasn't honest with myself at all when I convinced myself that I wanted to break up with her because, we weren't working or whatever, but it was more just me being a selfish asshole.
Right.
So, it was just like a lot of like learning how to be honest with my emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, I think.
It sounds a lot of foo-foo yoga stuff, but...
Yeah, no. And it's funny that all of our inclination is to scoff at our own growth as people, or it's just like, it's all a bunch of bullshit, but, it's what got me through everything.
Right.
It makes me a better person and healthier.
It's super important, but let me downplay it a lot.
But we all do that. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I think it's just as a self-defense thing, it's just, but, so you mentioned that you would share why your rent was so cheap at your apartment.
Okay.
And I'm very curious about that because that's very affordable.
So it was in a neighborhood called Glassell Park.
Okay.
Which, if you're unfamiliar, is in East LA. And my brother and I weren't educated on the neighborhoods in Los Angeles. And after we moved there, I would be driving home and my next door neighbor would text me and be like, hour wait to get to the apartment because police are there, whatever. And so there was actually a gang raid one night where they raided the entire adjacent block, which I guess belonged 100% to the gang. And they arrested so many gang members, they had to take them to Dodger Stadium parking lot to process them all.
Holy shit.
Like it sounded like a war zone outside.
You know which gang?
The Drew Street gang.
Okay.
And I can go into the whole history of them, but I won't. It's very fascinating. It involves a bread factory. Anyway, so they arrested all of them.
Amongst all the other crap you've got going on this first year, you're also... So you never actually were concerned for your life or anything? You thought it would be fine? Or is that just what you told people, but in actuality, you're like, ugh?
I was never concerned for my life, but I think that was dumb.
Yeah.
I think I should have been, but it was kind of like... I just blocked it out for that first year.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're just like, I can't process that. This is where I live. I've got a lease.
And then we ended up suing that landlord when we left because they tried to cheap us out all this money, like our safety deposit. But what they were really doing was just remodeling the apartment using our money. And so we went to court and we won a little bit of money back. We should have taken more pictures of everything. But they like showed up with like my bedroom door had been like kicked in and like the windows were broken. And I was like, we did not do that. Right. You guys just want to put in hardwood floors.
Yeah.
So, that was not great. Yeah. So, I mean, we ended up leaving there and, moving into a house and everything was cool. But dating life's still not great.
Yeah.
After I stopped seeing the girl in Germany.
Yeah.
I started to actually kind of experience dating in LA.
Uh-huh.
I'm at a party. It's July 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime it's a lot of college friends, you notice the people who aren't your college friends.
Yeah,
there's this girl there, and I noticed her immediately because she was, remember when gladiator sandals were a thing? Mm-hmm. She was wearing a pair of those, but they went all the way up to her knees.
Oh, so like gladiator boots.
Strappy nonsense.
Yeah.
So I'm like, ooh, who's this girl?
Yes.
There was also a wet t-shirt contest.
Wow.
That I lost to Drew Coombs.
That is the epitome of a film school party.
Yes.
You hear wet t-shirt contest, you go, oh, and then it's two dudes who lose to each other.
Right. And I wore, it was an only dude wet t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll go hit on this girl now.
Yeah. Give you some confidence there.
Yeah. I think it actually worked in my favor because I was like, this guy's not afraid to make a fool of himself.
Yeah, that's true.
So I approached the gladiator. And it was easy, talking to her, and she had mentioned something about ice skating. She liked to ice skate. And the next weekend, we go ice skating.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know when she said that she liked ice skating was that she was an ice skater.
Oh, okay.
Like she got on the ice and pirouetted. And I was like, oh, shit. Because I'm a good skater, and I thought that I would have that to impress her with.
Right.
But obviously she was way better than me.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, I got to up my game here. And so I decided I'm going to be real cute. And while we're skating, I'm going to turn around and back skate and talk to her at the same time.
Yeah. Like a super cool guy.
Yeah. I catch an edge and I come down so hard. It's like, it was like tripping when you catch your foot on something and your body just catapults to the ground. Yeah. And I hit my head on the ice and I knock myself 100% unconscious. And the next thing I know, I'm laying on my back and she's over top of me like, oh my God, are you okay? And so she like helps me over to the edge, off the ice. And we're like sitting down. She's like, what's your name? And I was like, my name's Eric. What's my name? And I was like, your name is blah, blah. I remembered her name.
Yeah.
And she was like, what's your address? And I was like, it's yada, yada, yada. But as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I realized I had no idea where that was. It was the weirdest thing where it was like, I knew the numbers, I knew the name of the street. I had no idea where on the planet that was.
Right.
Like, do we live in Cleveland? I don't know.
Yeah.
Where is that? In retrospect, I should have gone to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a concussion.
I think so.
Yeah.
When you don't know where your house is.
Right. She ended up driving me back to her apartment that night to like chill while my brain got back together.
Yeah.
And apparently every time a car came at us in the opposite direction, I was like, oh no, this is going to hit us. Ah! And I don't remember that either.
Right. Well, sure, because when you're in a concussion, you're very sensitive to lights. So every time the headlights, it probably looked like they were coming right at you.
Right. And she was like, it's cool.
Yeah.
I guess she found that endearing. So we ended up dating for like 2 months or something like that. Now, we get near the end of the 2 months, and the girl from Germany is moving back to LA.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh no, I still have feelings for that girl.
Yeah.
And so I sit this girl down. I'm like, I got to break up with her. I can't continue to date her. And so I sit her down. I'm like, hey, I'm still in love with my ex-girlfriend. And she didn't say anything. She stood up and she walked to her front door and she opened it. And just stood there like, get out. And I was like, okay, do I like try and hug you on the way out? What happens here? It was super fucking awkward.
Oh, God, silence.
Yeah.
And then did you never speak again?
No, we spoke again because I left my DVD of Brazil there. It's my favorite movie. And you had it, how much of a dick am I? I'm like, hey, I know that we're not on speaking terms, but can I get my DVD back?
Oh, God.
She was like, yeah, you can come and get it. So I go over there to get it.
Yeah.
And she brings it down, to like the apartment gate because she doesn't really want to talk to me.
Right.
But I think I kind of like forced her into a casual conversation, put the awkwardness aside.
Yeah.
Which is probably a dick move on my part. I should just let her be angry.
Right.
We're having this casual conversation or whatever. And then I was like, oh, I guess I should go. And she says, you have something in your teeth. And then she turned around and walked away. And I get back to the car and I had like a whole black bean skin on like one of my teeth. And she just let me ramble on like an idiot for 5 minutes.
What a great parting shot.
Yes.
That's amazing.
I think she was owed that.
Yeah. Oh, well, certainly. And then some, probably.
Yes.
But that is amazing because she probably wasn't listening to a word you said. She was like, I just can't wait till this is over so I can tell him. She was probably like, I hope he really just like gets emotional and says all this stuff. And then all I'm going to say is you got something in your teeth. That's amazing.
Walk away. Yeah. She, I just try and imagine things from her perspective where it was like, I dated this guy once who knocked himself unconscious, broke up with me by saying he was still in love with his ex, and then had something in his teeth when he was trying to be nice to me, and I just like didn't care.
Yeah. Because he insisted on picking up a DVD that I'm sure he could have purchased anywhere.
No.
No?
It was a Criterion collection, okay? It was expensive. I needed it back. It's Brazil. It had 2 versions of Brazil on it.
So then what happened with the... what were you going to say?
It was petty.
Yeah, but, you wanted it back.
Yeah. So the other girl gets back, and, like, basically it was like she was over it, I wasn't, and there's really nothing there. We, segued back into being... So, yeah, I ended a relationship in terrible fashion just for nothing to happen.
Yeah, so you ended one without checking in on the other one and be like, hey...
Yeah.
What's going on? Well, your skating story reminded me of... So I met my girlfriend at summer camp. We were both working there. She was not a student. I always like to clarify that.
This is your current girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When we met, when I started working at that camp, I'd pretty much just given up on dating in general.
That's when it happens.
Exactly. And it kind of makes sense that it did happen this way because I'm not one to like hit it off at a bar and, I got to grow on people, It's like, I'm a personality guy,
right.
And you can't get that across at a loud bar.
Right.
And so being forced to interact with me because we work together, it's a good chance for me to just wear you down and be like, oh, this guy has some good qualities. Doesn't jump out right away, but So that whole summer, and there was another guy that was clearly into her who had some superiority over me, like, 'cause he'd been at the camp a number of years. And so like when we would drive the kids to, Santa Monica or wherever, like he would, somehow make sure that he was in the same van as her. And then like at the last, I remember one time, like I was getting in the van and then he was like, oh, actually you're in this one. I need you driving. And I was so furious because, I'd started having feelings for this girl. And so as soon as I realized there was a competition, I was like, God damn it, I'm going to lose again. Everything sucks. And I was calling friends every day because I was just terrified that this wasn't going to happen. And because, what started off as a good thing, because I was like, oh, I really like this person. I get to spend all this time with them. Turned into like my own personal hell because I was with her all the time. So anytime I looked and saw her talking with the other guy, and she's just being like a polite, nice person, every time I'd see them talking, I'm like, ah!
That's
like,
the don't shit where you eat.
Exactly.
Thing,
Exactly.
Which I can't not shit where I eat.
I shit where maybe I'm welcome.
Right.
And if it happens to be, maybe I'm welcome.
Yeah.
And if it happens to be next door, well, then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll shit here.
Yeah, exactly. Location, not irrelevant.
Yeah.
So it was just hell for like 6 weeks. And we took the kids roller skating one night. And I have no balance. I was 12 years old when I finally learned how to ride a bike. And it pissed my dad off to no end because he never goes on business. He works for the state of Ohio at the Capitol building. And he tried, like any good parent does, to get me to learn. And I would always just give up after like the first time I fall down.
Right.
Anyway, the one business trip he ever went on, our neighbor taught me how to do it. And he ended up kind of being a jerk anyway. So it was just like, I felt bad. I still feel bad about that.
Did your dad get home and you're like, I learned how to ride a bike?
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck you.
Yeah. Basically. I'm sure that's what he said in his head. At the time, he was just like, that's great. And then he probably just went into his room and was like, God damn it.
Thank you for taking that parental memory away
Exactly.
from me.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I have terrible balance. I've never done snowboarding, or when skateboarding was a thing in the 90s, I would just sit on the skateboard on the top of my driveway and, just ride it down the driveway.
Yeah,
that was the extent of my skateboarding. So we go rollerblading. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do well at this, but I'm going to have some fun with it. Like it can't be that hard. Like it'll be kind of goofy and endearing maybe. So like I went to Target and I bought arm pads and a helmet and like I was just
You went all out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna play up the goofy. I'm just gonna be goofy about it.
Were you at like a rink or
Yeah.
were you okay.
Yeah. So it felt like very much like middle school all over again. Or rather 5th grade when we would have roller skating parties at rinks.
Couple skate and then you skate to the side and you're like, I'm alone.
Well, I would never even get this. What I would do is pretend to twist my ankle at school that day so that I couldn't do it. And that no one gave a shit, but I would actually, walking down the hall in between classes, I would trip myself.
Make a big show.
Yeah. And so I was already kind of picked on in middle school anyway. And so I would just trip in front of everybody. They'd be like, oh, what a doofus. Like, yeah, right. And then so that way at the party, I'd be like, yeah, I wish I could skate, but you saw it. You saw it. It was there. Remember when I tripped?
I hurt my ankle?
Yeah, I just can't do it. So I would purposely just kick myself out so I wouldn't have to worry about like embarrassing myself in front of all these people.
Take yourself out of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
It was your decision.
Exactly. Yeah. I was a DNP on my own. It wasn't a coach's decision. It was my decision.
Yeah.
So I just play Pac-Man and hang out and, whatever. So I decided to go the opposite direction and just play up the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. I'll get the helmet. I'll get all the pads. It'll be fun. Maybe she can kind of teach me, And I was like, maybe this will get me ahead of this guy. Little did I know that she had no real interest in him, of course. I didn't find that out for months, later. But it went terribly because I couldn't stand anybody who was holding my hand.
God.
So like she's helping me a little bit and I fall and I bring her right down with me. And she bruises easily. So she was like already had a big bruise. I'm like, oh my God, this is not going well. My whole arms, I'm not kidding, were black.
Oh my God.
With bruises for like 2 weeks. And I think that was I've finally gotten to a place now where I don't think that my life is a movie in some weird way.
Right.
But I think in that moment, I've envisioned it like you do in the movies where it's kind of cute and like the person trips once and then they just get it and they figure it out. And it's just fun and it's a montage.
And maybe you both fall and you're like rolling around and it's cute.
Yeah,
and
then they play a song and then you hold hands and like no, I just kept falling and falling and falling. And like some like very sweet old lady was like giving me tips, which is so like in the moment it's the worst thing possible because she's like 80 years old and she's skating around and I'm like 27. I should be able to do this, And she's like, no, you got to do this.
Lady, I'm trying to work some game.
Yeah,
here.
and she's not leaving, and so then I'm getting curt with the old lady, and I feel bad about that because she's just trying to help. Like the whole thing was a complete disaster.
Oh my God.
I remember hanging up my skates and going for a walk, and like I called my friend who, God bless him, dealt with this on an almost daily basis of like, what she sat with him at lunch. What's going on? And I was like, I think I ruined it. I think it's all done. And he's like, I mean, it's whatever, man. Like if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. But yeah, I have not gone skating since. And I probably never will.
So what did she say when you told her that was what you were like? You were planning to woo her with silliness.
The first time she may hear this insight, maybe when she listens to this episode. I don't know that I've ever actually directly referenced it.
Somebody has to find that part of you endearing to. My wife says that. Because we were friends, we worked together, we were friends at work before we started dating, and she said the moment that she realized that she liked me like that was we were walking across a crosswalk, and I just like silly walked, high kicking or something like that. And she was like, yeah, that's when I realized. I was like, oh, I guess you like me for what I am, which is a weirdo.
Yeah, well, because those are those moments where your personality comes out, where you're finally comfortable enough with the person.
Right.
You know, you're not second guessing everything you're saying or whatever. That's who you are. You're somebody who can goof around and isn't afraid to do that. And, you know, she saw that.
Right.
And I think that's when a relationship can click.
And it takes you over a decade to learn that, despite everyone around you telling you to be yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, I remember a girl that I was into, this was probably 10 years ago. My cousin and I were standing outside of my apartment, and I was really into this girl. And I think my cousin and I had gone to see some crappy movie or something. And I was like texting with this girl afterwards or whatever. And I was like, I don't know what I should say. And he's like, well, just be a person. Like, I don't know. Just say like... Which is a phrase I use all the time.
Start with hello.
Yeah. I think I was like, maybe I should say like, somehow it took him 35 minutes to convince me that it was okay to say, just saw a movie, wish you were there. I couldn't handle that. I like, she's going to think I'm a weirdo. Like, what is that? I'm like, what? That's a lot of emotion and feeling. Right. He's like, you're just being a person.
Right.
If she has any feelings towards you, or even if she's just a person, she's going to say, oh, that's sweet, maybe next time, or something.
Right.
She's not going to be like, what the fuck, weirdo?
Yeah.
You wish that we were spending time together? And it took me over half an hour to send that. And then I was nervously like, what's she going to say?
Right.
And then, of course, because she's just a normal human being, was like, oh, that's sweet. You know, hope to see you soon, or something like that.
Right.
And I was like, oh, you could.
And you're sitting there like, do I put comma ha?
Yeah.
Do I say ha ha?
Yeah.
Do I put a smiley face?
And then I think I like butchered it. I was like, well, you could come over now if you want to, or something like that. And then she was just like, haha, no, not tonight, you know, at some other time. And it's funny, we actually talked about it on the Andy show recently. With that same girl, there was a night, it was my birthday. And again, like we were talking about earlier, I was investing all my happiness on whether or not this girl was going to show up. And she showed up late. Which was, it doesn't matter. I mean, like, you know, she had no idea of the importance of, you know. Right. And of course, I had all these other friends there that I should have been like, wow, look at all these people that showed up to my birthday.
Right.
And, you know, but I'm just like, where's she gonna, is she gonna come? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then she came, and then we went back to her place. But I brought Andy as my wingman. And we laughed about this because he just talked for like 4 hours.
Oh, my God.
And because she was asking questions, and I was just like awkward and like, you know, like there was nothing. The situation was fucked anyway, but it was just, we were laughing about it because he was just talking about his band and all this other stuff. Again, prompted. It wasn't like he was just on a monologue. And, you know, and he's like starting to look at me at like 2:00. Like, what's the plan here?
Right.
And then she was like, well, I'm going to go to bed. She left. And then Andy was like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, am I sleeping on the couch? And he did. And then I went into her room and asked if I could sleep in her bed, but very platonically, you know. And that's what we did. And I told him, this is embarrassing, but the next morning I was like, yeah, we totally made out. Just to like justify like for him. But we definitely didn't. We definitely didn't.
I'm uncomfortable listening to this.
Yes. Just imagine being there.
Right. I feel like also, you know, you have so many of these failures where you are banking on this person coming to this party and you're really not having any fun because of it. But even when you do get to that place, you have no plan for what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
You're like, we'll get there and I'll figure it out. I did not figure it out. I am not prepared for this.
Nope. And now we're just in it. And what do we do?
Right.
I don't know. So nothing, apparently.
Listen to Andy talk for 4 hours.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And again, he was a trooper for agreeing to come along. And ultimately, I should have just been like, hey, I shouldn't have asked him to come. Like, I should have just asked the girl, hey, do you want to,
Right. Or text him like, hey, make an excuse to leave or something.
Yeah. And I think we'd even talked about that on the way to her house. That's the other thing. It's like in those moments when it's like, it's almost like you're preparing to go to battle and you're like suiting up and you're like, all right, here's the plan. Half an hour in, I'm going to be like, hey, da-da-da-da-da, whatever the plan is.
Right.
And then like half an hour goes by, then he looks at me and I'm just like getting another glass of water or something, and he's just like, okay.
It's that fear of rejection.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't want that moment where they're like, you should leave.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, my soul is crushed.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So like the end of that year, though, the first girl had a boyfriend, and the four of us, the two next door neighbors and one of their boyfriends and me, go to a bar, and I'm designated driver, and so we're at this bar. It's closing time. We leave. We get in the car. I get a green light. I inch into the intersection, and we get plowed by this truck.
Oh.
And like
not again.
Like a year later, almost to the day. And it like spins the car around, and all I see is the car just speed away, the truck that hit us.
Fuck.
We're all dazed. We get out of the car, and it's closing time, so there are a million witnesses.
Yeah.
And like the bouncer came out and he like brought us water or whatever, and apparently everybody saw that this guy was just like hitting parked cars as he was going up the street. So he must have been real drunk.
Yeah.
So we're like fortunate that we didn't die.
Yes.
And it was one of those accidents where it was like it hit us right on the axle. So it was just enough to total the car. Totaled car number 2.
Man.
Yeah. And that was the first year in LA, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a bookend to a intense year.
It was the type of thing where once it was over, it kind of felt like that was like graduation from the first year in Los Angeles, where it was like, okay, now we can get on with being like having a life here. Yeah. And like I was saying before, where it's like you have no emotional, I was like emotionally ignorant.
Yeah.
And all that stuff kind of added up to me figuring out how not to be a doofus.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 And that is the amazing thing. When I'm talking with people about these stories, it's always nice that when we're sitting here talking, you can see the positives in it.
Yeah.
But it's just, man, in the moment, it's that it's not there.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
It's
somewhere
rough.
in the middle of that too, I punched a wall because I was angry, and I did what you should never do, which is punch right on a stud.
Oh God!
So I thought I broke my hand, and I like went to the doctor, and they're like, "No, you just sprained the shit out of it." And I think there's still kind of a lump right here from it. But yeah, don't punch walls.
What were you angry about? Do you remember?
I was just angry about like relationship stuff.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you had plenty to be angry about.
Yes, I was angry about a lot of that stuff.
And what's infuriating too in those moments is that it sounds like, you can't control how people feel, but a lot of this was self-inflicted too. It sounds like
100%.
Yeah.
It's just like poor decision making,
right?
Where it's like, and I think a lot of this stuff, it's like it's the wrong decision when you are making it.
Right.
And you just don't know any better. You're like, I'm going to close my eyes and run forward at full speed.
Yep.
And it's going to work.
Yep.
And yeah, you don't really know how to assess a situation.
Right.
And not make that decision. So I met this other girl at work, and we had a connection, and it was one of those things where it was like she was in a relationship and I wasn't, and then I was in a relationship, whatever. So finally we were at a point where neither of us was in a relationship, and I was like, I'm going to ask her out.
Yeah.
So I asked her out. So I asked her out, and she was like, yeah, okay, we'll do it. And so we dated for like 2 weeks or something like that. It was Valentine's Day weekend, and she was like, I have some friends in town this weekend, so I'm sorry we can't hang out.
Okay.
But I'll talk to you at the end of the weekend. We'll set something up or whatever.
Right.
And so I sent her a bunch of flowers.
Yeah.
And she texted me saying, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And then I did not hear from her again. And I was like, I was like, I like texted her Sunday night and I was like, hey, hope you had a good weekend, whatever. And then nothing. And 2 weeks later, I was like, fuck this. And so I called her and I left her this message like, this is fucked up. Like we're friends and, beyond dating and, like if you had any respect for me, you wouldn't do this, whatever. And then I eventually talked to her 2 months later. She apologized for it. And I was like, okay, it's cool, and we didn't really hang out much.
Yeah.
And then we started hanging out again. And
a theme.
Right. And it was platonic.
Oh, okay.
And then maybe I kind of like hinted that we should try dating again. And then she like ghosted me out of a friendship.
Oh.
And I didn't talk to her for like 6 months. But at this point, I learned my lesson.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm not even going to like fret this.
No.
And then we talked to each other again and we were like, hey, that was like a whole thing. I'm just going to forget about it.
Yep.
Like we don't hang out or anything.
Right.
Now.
But you're cordial.
Well, yeah, we're cordial, but it was like getting ghosted fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Especially in a situation where, because I'm guessing, it's always tricky with a new relationship when it's around a holiday. It sounds like she just bucked it right away. She was like, I'm going to avoid Valentine. I've got friends.
Right.
God knows if she even did or not. But
Probably
I think
not.
she was just like, I'm going to nip this. This is too new. I don't want to put the pressure on it. And so, you didn't do anything wrong by sending flowers. But that also said, like, from her perspective, I'm guessing, like, oh, this guy's really into this. I'm not ready for this or whatever.
You're wrong.
What?
You're wrong.
I'm wrong. Okay.
She started dating her ex the same time she started dating me again. And she was like, I don't know which way I want to go. And then Valentine's Day rolled around and she made her decision.
Okay.
And it was not me.
Wow. So it had nothing to do with you.
It had something to do with her not liking me.
Well, sure. But like nothing that you did.
Right. It was just like she
sucks.
made a decision and it was not me. So.
In some ways, I guess that's better. I guess you didn't. When did you find that out? Later?
I found that out after between ghostings. After, we started hanging out again and she was like, hey, like, I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to handle it. And so I just stopped talking to you because,
That's when you just wish like, hey, just tell me that in the moment. It would have been a bummer.
Right.
But like, hey, decided to get back with my ex. And you're like, okay. But the not knowing is what's maddening. Because then you're like, should I not have sent flowers? Did I do something wrong? Like, it is just maddening.
Kill yourself trying to figure out like, what the fuck was it that I like should have done? Like, what did I say?
You're going through every conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it's maddening.
Am I that bad of a kisser?
Yeah, all that stuff. Well, yeah, I'm glad everything's better. What you said you're on hiatus. What are you working on?
Well, I generally work in television as either a story editor or a casting editor for reality shows. And I just got done working on a casting for an MTV show about dating.
Oh.
But on hiatus, I'm working on a book. I've written one novel. I have a literary agent. I'm working on some edits for it, and hopefully I'll get it sold sometime in my lifetime.
Great.
And then working on another book at the same time. So
okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Well, yeah, I'm glad everything's better now, and best of luck with the books.
Thank you.
And we've come a long way, right?
We have. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
That was the episode. Thank you so much to Eric for coming over and opening up about a pretty crappy year. I think we can all agree. But I'm glad that things are going much better for him. I'm glad that my girlfriend, for some reason, found me endearing and decided to keep talking to me after I dragged her down on the roller rink. Plenty to be thankful for, folks. Just a reminder, you can check out badtimesgoodstoriespod.com, past episodes, merch, and support me on Patreon. There's a link to the Patreon page. I greatly appreciate it. And again, if you have a bad time that makes a good story, shoot it to me at badtimesgoodstoriespodcast@gmail.com, and I may just read it on the air. I hope that you continue to enjoy your summer. And until next Wednesday, keep laughing.